Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bookmore Show. It's Stuart here with Betsy Vaughan. Betsy, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks, Stuart.
I was introducing you with your surname. Maybe I should start introducing me with my surname as well, just in case people start thinking I'm like Madonna or Cher and just go by a first name only.
I bet that's what they're thinking. Madonna.
I do often get mistaken for one of those two. Okay, that was an embarrassing start to the show, but we're going to plow on. So today we're going to follow on from the episode we did last week with Dean. We were talking then about the types of books, and we kind of explored the idea of a 90-minute book being perfect for three types of books, really. A lead generating book, a lead converting book, and a blueprint type book. And depending on where you're thinking about using your book in the funnel, depending on the kind of particular use case, one of those models kind of fits quite nicely in the quick and easy and convenient and cost effective way of creating a 90-minute book and having it as a super valuable asset in that funnel. So we're going to elaborate a little bit on those ideas.
Very good. Should be interesting.
I think so. Just before we started recording, we were kind of running through a couple of the examples of the books that people have already written with us and kind of categorizing them as those types. So this should be a great show to give people kind of specific examples of what we've done in the past. And hopefully that'll trigger something within kind of your business as you're listening in, thinking you've had the thought already, or you know that a book is a valuable asset, but perhaps you haven't quite contextualized it to where you could use it in your own business. And this hopefully will give you a few more ideas to kind of dial that in and see for yourselves where this could fit and start uncovering those invisible leads. And for the leads that are already uncovered, kind of give those people a way of educating themselves and revealing the kind of self-evidencing that this is the right solution for them.
All right, sounds good. Let's dig in.
Okay, so a bit of context then, I guess. We always use the same language, so there's always the assumption that people know where we're coming from. So when we talk about lead generating books and Profit Activator number 2, which you'll hear us mention quite a lot, that's referring back to the Breakthrough DNA framework, which is the 8 profit activators to accelerate the various areas of your business. So if you're joining us for the first time and you haven't listened to a description of the 8 profit activators before, in the show notes, I'll link across to the Breakthrough DNA book so you can grab a copy of it and then run through those just so it's a little bit clear in your mindset. I think as we talk about a lot of the things, we talk about understanding particularly the before unit, that Profit Activator 1, which is selecting a single target market, Profit Activator 2, which is giving people an easy, low commitment way of raising their hands as being a valuable lead, a valuable prospect, and Profit Activator number 3, which is patiently educate and motivate people towards making a decision when they're ready. Understanding those 3 areas is kind of key to understanding where your book fits into it. So if you are joining us for the first time, head across to the show notes at 90minutebooks.com/podcast. And this is episode 40. And there's a link in there to the Breakthrough DNA book. And that's really going to help kind of conceptualize this and put it into the funnel that you're trying to create. So the lead generating books that we're talking about is revealing leads that you aren't necessarily already aware of, people that haven't raised their hand already, they're not on your list, you're not having a conversation with them. And some of the books that we've got, we talk about lead generating books at length, but some of the books we've got in the gallery, even just going through the titles, you'll see that these are kind of introducing new ideas, or you can, even if it's not your area of business, you can see and understand how a customer who is broadly interested in that environment or that product or service would be compelled by the title to raise their hand, because it gives the promise of a fix, promise of a solution. It kind of guides people on the next step down a journey that they're already thinking about taking. The lead converting books, as we were saying last week, is a little bit more around people already know this is a good idea. So this is the type of book that we would offer to people on the 90-minute book list already, or people who listen to the More Cheese Less Whiskers podcast, which is a sister podcast that we've got. These are people who are aware of the environment already, but maybe need a little bit more guidance and structure into why it's a good idea, how it could work for them. All of the doubts and objections that people might have to why something is a good idea. A lead converting book is a great way of overcoming those up front and giving people more evidence that they've made the right choice, kind of progressing down this path. And then the blueprint book is a little bit more of a Profit Activator 3 tool, a little bit more of a how-to book, not necessarily at the top end of the funnel, like introducing a whole new concept to people, but it's the model that I always think about when I think about these books are the ones where you've got perhaps a program of work. So let's say, for example, you have a dentistry. We just ordered some more books for one of our clients, Return on Hygiene. That is a dentistry book. It falls nicely into a Profit Activator 2 camp. To a certain degree, it's a lead converting book because it's talking about how to use your hygienists as a profit center rather than a cost center. So although to a certain degree it's introducing a new idea, and it's certainly the case that we talk about 3 different types of books, but I mean, there's a big crossover between them. They don't just sit in one particular pool and do one particular job. There's definitely a crossover. But
right.
Return on Hygiene is less around introducing a brand new idea, although it is that to a certain degree, but it's a little bit more about overcoming objections to why hygienists might be a profit center or could be a profit center within your business. A blueprint book, if Rachel then went on to do a further book, moving people towards the goal, the objective of working more specifically with her. Let's assume, for example, she had 5 modules in a particular the framework in which she delivers this training. A blueprint book may be the first step in that process. It might be the first module of the material, all grouped together into one book, more of a how-to book that kind of educates and motivates people that they're still in the right place, that this is adding further value, and kind of moves the conversation along further to a conversion point. Mm-hmm. Lots of words there. Does it make sense so far?
So far, I'm following you.
That's always a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, a mouthful of coffee. Must be talking too much because my voice is starting to crack up already. So this concept, I think this is something we want to dive into a little bit more today and break down that difference between a lead converting book and a blueprint book, how they work together in concert. Not necessarily that you need all of these things, although it would definitely be a benefit because you've got a lot of assets in your individual funnel then, but just thinking about the difference in the way they sit and the job of work that they're doing at that particular time. So if we look at the before unit, the Profit Activator 1, 2, and 3, the choosing a single target market for this particular funnel, the writing something that encourages people to raise their hand, and they're having something in Profit Activator number 3 that really educates and motivates people to convert, then you can see where, depending on the type of people that you're trying to engage, and this is where it's always beneficial to start with the end in mind. So don't think about writing a particular book as a kind of be all and end all, as in one thing that will do all of these jobs, but think about it as doing a particular job of work. So writing something that engages people at the very front end. So with the dentistry model, the Return on Hygiene book is to a certain degree already assuming that those words make sense, that you've already got hygienists in there, which, I mean, again, trying to use a specific example of an already existing book, it crosses over all of those 3 areas.
Yeah.
So it's always, it's not, the model isn't kind of binary. It's not black and white. There is, it's more of an art than a science, but to a certain degree, it already assumes that people have are introduced to the idea of hygienists and already introduced to the idea that they might be a valuable asset within the business. For dentists, that's probably the case, because I can't think of a dental practice that doesn't have hygienists there as well, but it's not necessarily the case, I guess. The lead generating book before that may be 5 Ways to Increase Profits in Your Practice, a book that talks about that. So as a dentist is trying to solve the problem being becoming more profitable, then having something at the top end that answers that question, how to run a more profitable practice, might be more compelling than offering the same person a book saying return on hygiene, because they might not have made that step to say that the answer to solve the problem lies within their hygienists. So fishing from the broadest, deepest possible pool at the top, separating the job of identifying people from the sifting and sorting those that are interested in the more niche, the more specific thing that you're looking for. It's in the model that we're talking about, it's possibly more valuable to go at that top level. So lead generating being 5 ways to increase the profitability of your dental practice. One of those 5 ideas, knowing that your particular program is talking about hygienists. So one of those 5 ideas should be introducing the concept that there are profits being left on the table within the hygienists area. The lead converting book, the second book, the book that's starting to educate and motivate people, is then talking about return on hygiene. So it's taking one of those 5 areas and kind of diving deeper into it to overcome the objections to why focusing on hygienists might be the way to go. So again, not my area of expertise, but it might be the case that historically they are always seen as a cost center. Maybe people don't put value on that as a service, as opposed to things like Invisalign braces or things that you could maybe charge more high value for. Maybe they're seen as not part of the critical, like the critical care side of things. It's not like dental pain customers coming in looking at the hygienist side of things don't have this kind of urgent desire to fix the problem because it's causing pain. So it's a little bit like the mechanics model, the garage model of servicing versus car sales. Car sales are kind of the high ticket value, front of forecourt, big drawing line item in the budget. But actually sales, if you can get the turnover going well within servicing, then there's a big ongoing revenue stream to come from that. So all of these things that might be why people don't think about this particular solution, so hygienists in this example, overcoming all of those objections, saying, well, actually what you'll find is this, bringing all of those things together in return on hygiene is that compelling evidence that here's the seed of an idea, here's the detail of it. And towards the end of the book, then obviously we're leading people towards a call to action and we want them to take the next step. And the next step really is joining bringing us in as consultants or joining the program so that we can walk you through step by step how to execute on this particular strategy that we've got a program to help you fix. So far, so good.
Yeah, I think I am. I think I've got a lot of notes here in front of me, and so I think I'm following along okay here. Yeah. And
actually, last week's episode, and we've done some work on this in the intervening week, last week's episode was really a kind of wake-up call for ourselves, because in the kind of cobbler's shoes type example, actually, does that nursery rhyme or that story translate? Or is that just a British thing? Do you know what I mean if I said it's like the cobbler's shoes?
Yes, it's familiar.
Okay, good. I need my head is usually in US versus UK for a lot of the time, but there's still some things that default back to UK and they might not necessarily translate. So so this example or this model that we kind of, because we spend so much time focusing on other people's stuff, we don't take the time to look at our own stuff. Last week it was a real reminder that actually the 90-minute book is a great kind of Profit Activator 1, 2 type tool. It crosses over between the two. It kind of introduces people to the concept, and it gets people to raise their hand who are already thinking about a book. But it definitely doesn't address an audience of people who don't necessarily know that a book is a valuable thing to do if they're thinking about lead generation. So we don't necessarily have a book out there that is focused on one particular single target market, looking at help them increase their marketing effectiveness, increase the number of leads that they're getting in and the new business. It presupposes already that there is a book in the thought process. So we've got a gap at that end. The 90-minute book itself then starts to do some of the lead conversion job, because it runs through a lot of the barriers to entry for people, a lot of the preconceptions that people have. So it does a pretty good job of educating people as to another option. But then we also then don't really have any blueprint books. We don't necessarily have we do in other areas, and we do for customers when they come on board, because we've got, as we mentioned last time, we've got preparing for your 90-minute book and then beyond the book, which both kind of set that up for people, but we don't have those things in the funnel. So it's, even for us who are doing this and talking to other people about doing it kind of day in, day out, it's very easy to miss these steps because you get kind of caught up in the thing that you're doing.
Right.
From the people that, so obviously you're at the front end, you're talking to a lot of the people as they come on board, and then as they go through the process, they're dealing with a lot of the other team members, but then as they come towards the end of the process, you're dealing with them a lot, and I get a chance to speak to people towards the end of the process as well, as we're doing some of the strategy calls with people. That early stage, or even potentially once people are finishing and are thinking about using their books, do you find people are talking in terms of this kind of lead generation versus lead converting book? Is that a kind of narrative that's going on in people's heads?
Yeah, it really is. And I think because I hear, what sometimes in the beginning before someone comes on board, one of my questions I always ask is, tell me why you want to write this book. What is the goal of writing this book? And I get, I want to use it for lead generation. And I can tell you, I don't know that the term lead conversion has ever come up, but it's always like, they're wanting to grab that, but I don't think people are thinking of that next step of getting people to, raise their hand. And it's really, and I think from my standpoint of talking to people, I think it's really, when I'm looking at my notes, I'm thinking, I'm not even speaking like that to people on a regular basis. And, really and truly, because it's such a focus on lead generation. And so I think that discussing more about, the conversion, the raising the hand, I think maybe that needs to be more part of my spiel at this point, when I'm talking to potential clients or clients, at this point, towards the end of it. But yeah, there's always that lead generation. And I think that's, they're just thinking of that first step of, I just want to grab those leads. And I just want to, but then they don't. And obviously I'm not either thinking about the conversion aspect of it,
And it does cross over into so many different things that we do. I mean, we regularly refer to the More Cheese, Less Whiskers podcast here as examples of people who are working with books as tools, or sitting into the rest of the 8 Profit Activators and looking at engaging people once they're in. But it is I think often the thought of creating a book has so much baggage and energy around it. It takes 80 units worth of effort for someone to think about it and think about what they're doing with it. And then there's only so many units of energy left to think about, okay, well, how am I using it in that funnel? And certainly when people work with us, we can help that by taking of those 80 units to get it done. We can reduce that overhead to 20 or 30 units because we're doing the rest of it. But still, then there isn't necessarily anything that's then leaping back round with people and saying, okay, well, with this spare capacity that you've got now, let's take some of that and think about how it fits into the model. And also, as we started off by saying, that this isn't cut and dry. It's not clearly this can only be a profit activator 1 book,
Right.
2 book. This can only be a profit activator 2 book. This is only for collecting leads and this is only for conversion. There's definitely crossover. And well, sticking with, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even looking at our example, so if you had to categorize the 90-minute book if you could only categorize it in one of those 3 pools, then it would probably fall just into the lead converting book, although we primarily use it for lead generation. So anyone that's listening, I wouldn't want them to get too just think about this in terms of they can be used in different ways and they can do different jobs, but don't let it be a point of concern that, oh, well, I can't move forward until I've got this absolutely nailed down, because that's definitely not the case either. It's having something out there. I think we might have said this last week. Having something out there is infinitely better than having nothing out there, even if that something isn't entirely dialed in. So it's great to take the opportunity to look at the different categories, but definitely don't let it stop you getting that first one out there, because even something out there and then dialing it in over time is far, far better than having nothing out there and waiting for everything to be perfectly aligned before moving forward.
Right, exactly. Definitely. But I think you're right. I think mentioning these 3, I would hate for someone to think, oh, I don't know where I fall at this point, so maybe I shouldn't do anything, maybe, but there is a lot of crossover, pretty much with everybody that, we deal with. I can think of examples, so wouldn't want someone to say, oh, I'm not ready there because I'm not there because I don't know what it is I'm actually looking for, but not necessarily. We can start anyway, figure
exactly.
it out along
and
the way.
Other thing is that you don't know either until you actually get it out there in people's hands, in real customers' hands, and start getting some feedback. There's absolutely no way of knowing what the perfect implementation is. And this is really something that we try and drive home with people, saying that in comparison with doing a different type of book, a more traditional book that takes a lot longer and costs a lot more, again, the exact same risk is true, that you don't know how that's going to land, and doing something more quickly and efficiently and getting it out there and testing the market allows you to kind of iterate and develop on it afterwards. So absolutely the case with what we've done. Anyone that's listening to this with an idea but not knowing which category it falls into, it doesn't matter. Move forward with it, because it will do all of those jobs. And if you then decide that you need to dial it in a little bit more 6 months down the track, or it makes sense to write a second book to have a slightly different job of work 6 months down the track, that's fine. In the meantime, the first one's been out there doing all of the work that, had you have waited, it obviously wouldn't have done. So with jumping back to the example then, so we were using dental hygienists as the example. So we've got a pure lead generation book at the top end of the funnel, the broadest end of the funnel, trying to attract dentists who are looking to improve the profitability of their practice. So something talking about 5 ways to improve the profitability of your dental practice. One of those 5 being looking at the hygienist department. So then the lead converting book of taking away the doubt and answering the questions about why addressing hygienists is a good way of going. A blueprint book then is more around the educating and motivating part of it. So by this point, the people who are the most engaged, the hottest, the people who have had all of their questions answered to the point that they want to move forward and try this, will have converted into whatever you're offering at the end of those books. For people who are still in the funnel, people who are still on your mailing list, those who haven't converted immediately because either the time isn't right for them or they're still waiting for some further information, something like a blueprint book, a specific how-to, may be a great way of educating and motivating those people a little more towards executing. Again, this isn't to say that it's not a converting book. I mean, it really is a converting book. A blueprint is kind of like a subset of the converting category. equally, it's not to say it's not a lead generating book, because whatever that specific topic is, then people are going to be interested in this, and those invisible leads will still convert into that title, because it will still be raising the interest of people who are kind of dialed into that area. So if, for example, I mentioned if you've got the product or service that you're trying to sell is either a coaching service or a consulting service, or you've got a online or an in-person program, the first step of that, the first stage, the first module might be a blueprint type book in its own right. So we talk about going deep and answering one question as robustly as possible to really give value in all of the books that are written. The blueprint book is exactly the same. So, for example, if I think about what we can do better on the 90-minute book side of things, we talk about titles as being really the single most important thing out of the whole process. So we could write a book we should write a book that talks about creating killer titles that convert, and step by step walk people through all of the pros and cons, all of the benefits of one type of title versus another type of title, the things you want to consider as you're picking a title, the ways you can, as we were talking last week, the ways you can kind of dial in that word palette of phrases and language that people are interested in, the kind of narrative that they've got in their own mind. All of these things, we can create a blueprint book looking at that one particular subject. The hygienist, it can be, and again, this really isn't my area of expertise, but there might be one particular skill or discipline that they do where you can dive deep into it and almost give away the first module, because you need then to, or the desire then is to lead people into the subsequent modules. The target for all of these is those people who remain on your list and aren't converting because either they're lacking a piece of information or the time just isn't right for them. And that list is really where the gold lies over time. The likelihood of someone coming on board and converting immediately, depending on what it is to a certain degree, but it's a smaller group of people who are ready there and then. The far larger pool of people are those who convert over time, and being able to continue to stay in touch with them, send them what we would call flagship broadcasts, have a reason to continue to communicate with them after that initial opt-in. That's really the long tail of the conversion. And a blueprint book, or over time, several blueprint books, are a great way of having a reason to reach out to those people, continue to add value, and just be front of mind and put in front of them offers where they can convert and take that step into being a paying customer.
Well, there you go.
That
was good.
Yeah, that categorization of those three categories, does that make sense? I'm always conscious of kind of the model, because we're in it all the time, the model that's in our head and the separation between the two, particularly how things fit in with the 8 profit activators, that the breakthrough DNA, that model of before, during, and after units, the profit activator.
It absolutely makes sense. I do think it's very important for people to look at the 8 profit activators, for sure, just to make a definite connection there, I definitely recommend that. When you said you're going to put the link, I thought that's really a good idea.
It really does help set a kind of framework around the books, where they sit in your funnel as you create something, and then most importantly, what you then do with it afterwards. So having the asset created is great. It's getting that job done. You can tick the box, but it's not until you kind of move on and then use it and decide which is the best way of using it, either at the top of a funnel or with an existing list. It's really that usage that is the main thing, because that is what translates to new business through the door. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're looking to do for everyone.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, I think we're just passing half an hour, so that seems like a good time to wrap.
Great job. Yes, you did an awesome job.
And my voice just about held out as well. So, so
Hey.
if anyone's listening and has any questions about those 3 types of books, or you want to chat about it a little bit more, then feel free to shoot us a question to support at 90 Minute Books, and we can either answer questions directly, we can answer them on future shows if it's something to share with other people, or if you want to jump on a call and just have a quick chat about a book idea that you've got in your head, how it might fit well into a particular funnel, then just shoot us an email to support at 90 Minute Books, and we'll be able to follow up and answer any of those. If you're looking for the show notes, then this is going to be episode 40. So as always, head across to 90minutebooks.com/podcast. And this is episode 40. I'll make sure to link to the Breakthrough DNA book in there that goes into the 8 profit activators a little bit deeper. We also have a scorecard, a Profit Activator scorecard, which is available at profitactivatorscore.com. So for those 8 profit activators, that walks you through step by step on scoring yourself against those activators, those 8 profit activators, and see how not robust, but how advanced you are on each of those profit activators. And it's a good way of revealing kind of strengths and weaknesses. So not specifically related to this, but it's a good exercise to do. So I'll make sure a link's there as well. And of course, if you're ready to get started, if one of these things that we talked about has resonated with you, then again, just head over to 90minutebooks.com. There's a get started link at the navigation at the top, and then we'll be here waiting to get the execution of your book done for you in a quick and effective way, and then we can get that asset out there and get it into your funnel and convert it into getting some leads. So,
Very good.
anything that I've missed? I think that's it.
No, got it. You got it covered.
Perfect. Well, in that case, everyone, we will catch you in 2 weeks' time. Next week, we've got an interview with one of our existing authors, Yvonne Mayette, so that's going to be a great show. And then we'll be back with more questions and answers the week after that. Thanks, Betsy.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure.
Okay. Speak soon, everyone. Bye.